2 years ago, I dethatched about 4,000 square feet of my backyard and watched that lawn go from spongy, suffocating turf to the thickest, greenest grass I have ever grown on my property. The difference was so dramatic that my neighbor actually walked over and asked what I had done. Here's the thing. Most homeowners either skip dethatching entirely because they don't realize they need it, or they do it at the worst possible time and end up making things worse. I made both of those mistakes before I finally figured out the right approach. What changed everything for me was understanding that thatch is not just dead grass sitting on top of your lawn. It is a layer of living and dead organic material tangled up between the grass blades and the soil surface. And when that layer gets too thick, it literally chokes your lawn from the inside out. Water can't get through. Fertilizer sits on top. Disease moves in. Once I learned how to dethatch properly, with the right timing, the right equipment, and the right follow-up care, my lawn bounced back faster than I ever expected. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly how to dethatch your lawn the right way, from figuring out whether you actually need to do it, all the way through the recovery process that makes the whole effort pay off. And stay with me to the end because I'll share a technique I stumbled onto that cuts your lawn's recovery time nearly in half after dethatching. Most people skip this part entirely, and it makes all the difference. Now, let me be honest with you. I did this the wrong way for years. I used to look at my lawn every spring, see that it felt a little spongy underfoot, and just ignore it. I figured mowing and fertilizing would take care of everything. Then one year I got aggressive and dethatched in the middle of July because I had a free weekend and the lawn looked bad. The result was a disaster. I basically ripped up my lawn during the hottest part of the summer, and it looked like a dirt field for weeks. If you've been putting off dethatching because it seems like too much work, or if you've tried it and it didn't go well, you're not alone. I was right there with you. Then I started paying closer attention to timing and technique, and I tested different approaches over 3 seasons. What I saw completely reset my thinking about how and when to dethatch. Here's what I learned that changed everything. Thatch is not inherently bad. A thin layer, about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thick, actually protects your lawn. It insulates the soil, retains a little moisture, and cushions the crown of the grass plant. The problem starts when that layer builds up past 3/4 of an inch. At that point, research from Penn State's turfgrass program shows that water infiltration drops significantly, and the grass roots actually start growing into the thatch layer instead of down into the soil. That means your lawn becomes shallow-rooted, drought-prone, and more vulnerable to disease. Once you understand this, the whole approach makes sense. You are not trying to eliminate thatch. You are managing it so it stays in that healthy range where it helps your lawn instead of hurting it. So where do you start? The very first thing you need to do before you rent any equipment or buy any tools is figure out whether your lawn actually needs dethatching in the first place. And this is simpler than you think. Go out to your lawn, pick a spot that is representative of the overall condition, and push your finger straight down through the grass into the soil. You should feel the grass blades, then a layer of brownish, fibrous material, and then the soil underneath. That fibrous layer is your thatch. Now take a garden knife or even a flat screwdriver and cut a small wedge out of your lawn, about 3 inches deep and a couple of inches wide. Pull it up and look at it from the side. You want to measure that thatch layer, the spongy brown material sitting between the green grass blades on top and the dark soil below. If that layer is 1/2 inch or less, you do not need to dethatch. Your lawn is in good shape, and dethatching would actually cause unnecessary stress. If that layer is between 3/4 of an inch and an inch, you are in the zone where dethatching will make a real difference. And if it is over 1.5 inches, you have a serious thatch problem, and dethatching should be a priority. I recommend checking at least 3 or 4 spots around your lawn, because thatch buildup is not always uniform. You might find it is thicker in areas where you water more heavily, or where certain grass types dominate. Now let me tell you which lawns are most prone to this. If you are growing Kentucky bluegrass, Bermuda grass, or zoysia grass, those varieties produce a lot of lateral growth through rhizomes and stolons, and that growth is the primary source of thatch buildup. If you have a tall fescue lawn or a perennial ryegrass lawn, thatch tends to accumulate much more slowly. So your grass type plays a big role in how often you will need to do this. Now that you know whether dethatching is necessary, let me walk you through the most important decision in this entire process, and that is timing. This is where most people go wrong, and I include my old self in that group. The conventional approach is to dethatch whenever the lawn looks bad, or whenever you happen to have a free Saturday. What I have found works much better is matching your dethatching to your grass type's peak growing season. Here is why that matters. Dethatching is stressful on your lawn. You are literally ripping material out of the turf. Your grass needs to be in its strongest, most active growth phase to recover quickly. For cool season grasses like Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, and tall fescue, the best time to dethatch is early fall. I am talking late August through mid-September for most of the northern United States, roughly zones 3 through 7. The soil is still warm, the air temperatures are dropping, and the grass is entering its most aggressive growth period. You can also do it in early spring, but I have consistently gotten better results in the fall because the grass has the whole autumn season ahead of it to recover and fill in. For warm season grasses like Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, and St. Augustine, you want to dethatch in late spring to early summer, typically May through June, when those grasses are hitting peak growth. If you are in zones 8 through 10, that is your window. The one time you absolutely do not want to dethatch is during summer heat stress, or right before winter dormancy. I learned that the hard way, and trust me on this one, the timing makes or breaks the whole process. This next part is where most people get confused, and that is choosing the right equipment. You have got 3 main options, and the right one depends on how big your lawn is and how thick the thatch layer is. The first option is a manual dethatching rake. This is a heavy-duty rake with sharp, curved tines that dig into the thatch layer and pull it up. It works well for small areas, maybe up to 1,000 square feet, or for spot-treating problem areas. But I want to be straight with you. If you are doing a full lawn of 3,000 square feet or more, a manual rake will take you all day, and your back will let you know about it the next morning. The second option, and the one I use most often, is a power dethatcher, also called a power rake. You can rent one from most home improvement stores for around $50 to $80 a day. These machines have spinning vertical blades that slice through the thatch layer and pull it to the surface. They are adjustable, and you want to set the blade depth so that the tines are cutting into the thatch layer, but not digging deep into the soil. For most lawns, that means setting the blades to penetrate about a ½ inch below the surface of the grass. If your thatch is particularly thick, closer to 1.5 inches, you may need to make 2 passes, raising the blade depth for the first pass and lowering it for the second. The third option is a vertical mower, sometimes called a verticutter. This is the most aggressive machine and is really best for severe thatch problems or for warm season lawns that can handle the stress. If this is your first time dethatching, I would stick with the power dethatcher. It gives you plenty of control and does a thorough job without being overly aggressive. Now, if you are going to use a power dethatcher, and for most of you that is going to be the right choice, here is what I want you to know about the settings. Before you start, set the blade spacing. Most machines let you adjust how far apart the vertical blades are. For a standard dethatching job, blade spacing of about 3 inches works well. Tighter spacing is more aggressive, and wider spacing is gentler. Start with 3-inch spacing and see how it goes on your first pass. You can always tighten it up if needed. Now here is something a lot of folks skip that I think makes a huge difference. Before you dethatch, mow your lawn down a bit lower than usual. If you normally mow at 3.5 inches, bring it down to about 2.5 inches. Do not scalp it, but lowering the height gives the dethatcher better access to that thatch layer and reduces the amount of grass blade material that gets tangled in the machine. This one little preparation step makes the whole process smoother and more effective. Now, before I get into the actual dethatching process, I want to mention something that ties directly into what we are talking about today. If you are dealing with weeds on top of a thatch problem, and a lot of folks are because thick thatch actually encourages weed growth, I have put together a resource called Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol. It is available right now at lawncarelarrybooks.com for just $17. Inside you will find my exact day-by-day system for eliminating clover, crabgrass, and all those stubborn weeds, including which products to use, how to identify the 7 most common lawn weeds, and a complete seasonal maintenance calendar to keep them from coming back. It pairs perfectly with what we are doing today, because once you dethatch, that is the ideal time to get your weed control dialed in. You can scan the QR code on screen or check the link in the description. All right, let's keep going. So you have got your lawn mowed down slightly, your power dethatcher is set up, and you are ready to go. Here is exactly how to run the machine for best results. Start by making passes in one direction across your lawn, just like you would when mowing. Walk at a steady, moderate pace. Do not rush it. The machine needs time to work through the thatch layer. When you have covered the entire lawn in one direction, you are going to make a second set of passes, going perpendicular to your first passes. So if your first passes went north to south, your second passes go east to west. This crosshatch pattern is critical because thatch does not grow in neat rows. By going in 2 directions, you are pulling up material from every angle and getting a much more thorough result. Now I want to prepare you for what your lawn is going to look like after this. It is going to look rough. There will be piles of dead brown fibrous material all over the surface. Your lawn might look thin and a little beat up. Do not panic. This is completely normal and actually means you did a good job. The first time I did this properly, I almost had a heart attack looking at my yard afterward. But within 3 weeks, it was the healthiest it had ever been. Once you have finished running the dethatcher, you need to remove all of that debris from the lawn surface. This is not optional. If you leave that material sitting on top of your grass, it will smother the turf and you will end up right back where you started. I use a leaf blower to push the bulk of it into piles, and then I rake those piles onto a tarp and haul them to the compost bin. If you have a bagger on your mower, you can also run the mower over the lawn to pick up the finer debris. Whatever method you use, get that material off the lawn. A lot of people ask me whether you can compost the thatch, and the answer is yes, absolutely. It breaks down just fine in a compost pile. Now here is where the real transformation starts. What you do in the days and weeks after dethatching determines whether this whole effort pays off or falls flat. The ground is opened up, your lawn is stressed, and it is primed to absorb whatever you give it. This is the perfect time to overseed if your lawn is thin. Spread grass seed at a rate of about 3 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet for Kentucky bluegrass, or 6 to 8 pounds per 1,000 square feet for tall fescue. The seed will make excellent contact with the soil surface because you have removed that thatch barrier. If you are in the northern half of the country and dethatching in early fall, this timing is ideal because the seed goes down exactly when cool season grasses want to germinate. Right after you overseed, put down a starter fertilizer. Follow the rate on the bag, but as a general guideline, you are looking for something with a higher phosphorus content to encourage root development. Look for a fertilizer with an analysis like 18, 24, 12. That middle number, the phosphorus, is what drives root growth in new seedlings. And if you did not overseed because your lawn was already thick enough, you still want to fertilize after dethatching. In that case, use a balanced lawn fertilizer to help the existing turf recover. The final piece of aftercare, and this is something I cannot stress enough, is watering. After dethatching and seeding, you need to keep the soil surface consistently moist for the first 2 to 3 weeks. That means light watering twice a day, once in the morning and once in the late afternoon. You are not trying to soak the lawn. You just want the top 1/4 inch of soil to stay damp. If you overseeded, this moisture is critical for germination. If you did not seed, the water still helps the stressed grass recover and push new growth. After about 3 weeks, you can transition to deeper, less frequent watering, maybe every 2 to 3 days, to encourage those roots to grow down. Now let me walk you through some patterns I see homeowners fall into that can really set back their dethatching results. The first pattern is dethatching too often. I see folks who dethatch every single year, sometimes even twice a year, and they wonder why their lawn always looks stressed. Here is the thing. If your thatch is under 1/2 inch, dethatching does more harm than good. You are removing that protective layer and stressing the grass for no reason. I check my thatch every spring with that wedge test I described earlier, and some years I do not need to dethatch at all. Let the lawn tell you what it needs instead of putting it on an automatic schedule. The second pattern is using a dethatcher that is set too deep. I did this myself the first time I used a power dethatcher. I set the blades too low and essentially ripped out live grass along with the thatch. Your dethatcher blades should be penetrating the thatch layer, not cutting into the soil below. If you are seeing large chunks of soil being pulled up, or if the machine is leaving deep grooves, you need to raise those blades. Start shallower than you think, and make a test pass on a small section before committing to the whole lawn. The third pattern is skipping the aftercare. Dethatching without following up with seed, fertilizer, and water is like doing surgery and skipping the recovery. Your lawn is open and vulnerable after dethatching. If you just walk away and let it figure things out on its own, weeds are going to move into those open spaces before your grass can fill in. I learned this the hard way on my front lawn about 4 years ago. I dethatched beautifully but then got busy and forgot to seed or fertilize. Within a month, I had more crabgrass than I started with. The follow-up is what makes dethatching transformative instead of just traumatic for your lawn. The fourth pattern is dethatching a lawn that is already under stress. If your lawn is dealing with drought, disease, insect damage, or has been recently treated with herbicide, do not dethatch. Address those problems first and let the lawn recover before you add the stress of dethatching on top. Timing is everything, and a healthy lawn going into the dethatcher comes out the other side in much better shape. Now here is the bonus technique I promised you at the beginning of the video, and this is something I stumbled onto almost by accident. After I dethatch, I follow up with a light top dressing of compost, spread across the entire lawn. I am talking about a 1/4 inch layer, no more. I use a finely screened compost, and I spread it with a shovel and then work it into the turf with the back of a landscape rake. The reason this works so well is that the dethatching has opened up the surface of your lawn, and that thin layer of compost fills in right where it is needed most, directly at the soil surface where the grass crowns sit. It introduces beneficial microorganisms that actually help break down future thatch naturally, and it improves the soil structure so that water and nutrients move through more efficiently. After I started doing this, my lawn's recovery time went from about 4 weeks down to closer to 2 weeks. The grass filled in faster, the color came back sooner, and I noticed that thatch accumulated more slowly in the following season. Research from the University of Massachusetts turf program supports this. They have found that regular light top dressing with compost promotes the biological activity in soil that naturally decomposes thatch. It is like giving your lawn a probiotic after the procedure. Trust me on this one, The compost top dressing step is what separates a good dethatching result from a great one. Now, everything I showed you today is a critical part of keeping your lawn healthy, but dethatching often goes hand in hand with weed control, and that is where a lot of homeowners feel stuck. If you want a complete system for eliminating weeds and keeping them from coming back, take a look at Larry's 30-day weed kill protocol. It is available at lawncarelarrybooks.com for just $17. Inside you will find the exact day-by-day plan I follow, with specific product recommendations, pre-emergent and post-emergent application techniques, spot treatment methods, and a seasonal calendar that keeps your lawn weed-free year-round. It is written in the same straightforward style as these videos. No fluff, just the plan. You can scan the QR code on screen or grab the link in the description. It pairs perfectly with what you learned today because a freshly dethatched lawn is the ideal starting point for getting weeds under control for good. Dethatching is one of those things that seems intimidating until you actually do it, and then you wonder why you waited so long. If I can take a spongy, suffocating lawn and turn it into the thickest grass on my block, you can get the same results. Let me know in the comments if you have dethatched before or if this is going to be your first time. I would love to hear how it goes for you. Take care of that lawn, and I will see you in the next one.